So to get the block out, it's going to be 42 divided by 2. It's going to be 42 divided by 2. That's going to be 21. So we're going to add 5 to 21 just because I'm trying to be safe. On normally, I'm just going to add 4 because I need 2 inches on both sides. I'm going to add 5 to this one because I don't want to end up being too small. So the biggest measurement, which is the waist, divided by 2, 21 plus 5. So this is each side I'm cutting for. This is just so that I don't have to deal with this whole 6 yards of fabric. So now I look for where the fabric starts here, and then I measure 26 here. Then I measure 26 again. From the 26 mark to right here. So now I could just slice this like all the way down, but I really don't trust this fabric. I'll still go ahead and do it. I don't trust this fabric that much. Okay, so now we're going to, that's 126. We're going to cut the other one right here. Make a knot and then just slice. I don't really trust this method, but I mean it works. So now we don't have to deal with a big piece of fabric. I'm going to iron this so that it's actually easier to work with. Okay, so just in case you guys don't understand what I sketched, let me go ahead and explain it. So this dress it's a mermaid dress. It's going to be divided into 3 parts for the body part. So it's going to be divided into this part right here. That part's going to look something like this when I cut it. It's going to look something like this when I cut it. So that's part 1. It's going to have this part 2. When I cut and it's folded, it's going to look something like this. So this right here is part 2. Then it's going to have the flare right here like this. That's going to be the 3rd part. So it's going to be 3 parts, 1, 2 and 3. Then the sleeve is going to be a whole different story. But right now what I'm going to attempt to cut is this part right here. So to cut this part, I'm going to need the bust measurement right here, the waist measurement right here, the hip, and something I like to call the steps measurement right here. Okay, so first, when measuring, you want to make sure you folded your fabric to the wrong side. So right now I know this is the wrong side because you can see that the writing is actually readable from this side and not from this side. So fold it in 2 like so. It's going to look like this. So my cutting was kind of straight. I mean, it's a hit and miss with that kind of cuttings. Either it's straight or it's like way off. Okay, first off, whenever you're cutting, you want to get rid of this part right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it off so that we don't forget it's there and add it into what we are sewing. Next thing we're going to need is fold this part again. So now we're going to be using the bust span measurements. That's going to be the nipple to nipple. So from nipple to nipple is going to be 7.5 inches, approximately around 8 inches thereabout. So we're going to do this divided by 2. So 7.5 divided by 2, like this. Okay, 7.5 divided by 2 is going to be 4 inches ish. Let's just make it 8 for sanity's sake, because I don't want to deal with these small digits today. So we're going to deal with 8 inches, right? So to that 8 inches, actually stopped somewhere here. We're going to add this, a 1/4 inch, because actually it was 7 1/4, 3 1/4, 3. I don't know, but you guys know what I'm pointing at. It was right here. So we're going to add 1/2 inch for stitching. So we're going to take this like this, measure this right here. That's going to be 4 1/4 like this, and then we're going to fold at that 4 1/4 line. So we're going to fold and it's going to look like this. And mind you, that folding is going all the way down. Let me do it like this so you can see that it's going all the way down. So we have to come cross check again to make sure. So come back with your tape, and then let's make sure it's 4 1/4 on every side. Okay, 4 1/4 on the top, definitely 4 1/4 here too. So now the next thing we're going to do is to make I'm not really trying to make like a bustier. I'm just trying to give it like a cup form so that it's like she can wear it without a bra and it still holds perfectly. So we're going to work with our imagination right here. So right now we're going to imagine that this part still extends all the way here. So this is going to start at we're going to start at 6 inches, but because this is going to go in 1/2 inch, we're going to bring this down like this. So let's just say we're starting it at 5 inches. So I'm going to draw it on my table right here as a reference so that you guys can see that the fabric still continues. So right here, hopefully this thing wipes off when I'm done, but it's going to be right here like so. The fabric still continues right here in our head, not in reality. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with, but for now we're going to pretend. So this right here is the actual thing if we're cutting it from start. So this part we're going to cut separately. So now that it's there, we're going to measure where our bust point is. So our bust point from shoulder right here is going to be bust point, where is it? Bust point is 11. So everything you're doing, add 1/2 inch because we're going to take in 1/2 inch here. So it's going to be 11 right here. We're going to mark 11. That's the first line we're going to mark. So now the next line we're going to mark is from shoulder to under bust or yoke length. That is 15. Mark 15 right here. Then the next thing we're going to mark is the 1/2 length. So the 1/2 length is 17, and that's going to be right here. So we're actually doing 3 measurements. This is the bust point, yoke length, and 1/2 length. Typically the 1/2 length is usually the same for everybody, 17, but the bust point, depending on how big your bust is and how low your nipple is, that's what determines it. Okay, so now that we've established that this bust point right here is going to be the perkiest part of the bust, so that's where the nipple is going to be at. Let me see, 11.5. Okay, cool. So it's going to be right there. So now on this top part we're going to cut off just 1/2 inch. Here under the bust, I marked 1/2. Here under the bust I'm going to mark like let's see, 1/2, 3/4. So right here, I feel like that may be too much, but I'm going to mark 3/4 right here. So this is the 3/4 right here. So here is going to be 1/2 too. On the waist is going to be 1/2. So this measurement I did like so because this is going to be the deepest part, like the part that's going to be closest to her body. This is going to be the bust point, which is the perkiest part or the biggest part, and this part I just need to narrow it down so that it actually gives it the shape. So right now all I need to do is draw in the curves. So this one is going to come like this, and then this one is going to come like this. So from here I'm going to make it like a dot. So from the waist right here I'm going to make it like a 6-inch dot. Normally I like to measure from the top to see 23 inches down so that I know where my hip starts. So see, it landed right on that 23-inch mark. So again, from this 17-inch 1/2 length, measure 6 inches downwards because that's where your dot's going to stop. So now for this one I just need to connect it like this. For this one it could be a straight line, doesn't really matter at this point, but it just needs to come to a point right here. So let's do it like so. Okay, I don't want it to come out too much right there so that it doesn't come out at a weird angle. Okay, so now we've gotten the under bust curve. So all we need to do is connect this like this. So do you guys see what it looked like from here. I'm just going to do it at 8 because 8 typically is good. So this is going to be our neck right here. I'm not going to cut this immediately, but I'm just going to mark it right here. This is what I'll be cutting out, this right here. So cut it like this. Start from the top, even if I'm going to get rid of the top eventually, and then come down like it's a slope all the way to the nipple point. Make sure it's open when you're cutting. Yep, like this, and then come like this, come inside and then cut out. So if you notice, I actually did not sew cut all the way to where the point is, because remember we have ½ inch of space to sew. So eventually we're going to sew up to that point and then straight down. So at this point, it's up to you if you want to slit like the rest of the thing opened. For this design, should I? Okay, so in my sketch, I actually I drew the line all the way down. But when cutting it, things always change when I'm cutting. I don't know if I want to do it all the way down. I'll just leave it like so. I'll just leave it like that. Okay, so now we can open this up and you guys see what it looks like. So this is what it's going to look like. So this is the middle right here, and it's folded in two. So this is what it's going to look like. So I'm going to apply gum stay or interfacing, this white stuff. I'm going to apply it here, double, just so that it's a little bit like firm on that part. I'm going to apply it from basically where the neck starts to where this dart ends. Okay, so now that I've fused the interfacing to this, I'm going to cut out the lining. But before I cut out the lining, I need to determine the length of this, so that way I'm not wasting too much of my lining. So we're going to come back to this reference we made in the beginning right here. So the actual length from the shoulder right here to where the flay starts, it's going to be let me see what it says here. It's going to be 35. So we're going to cut 35, but then we're going to add about 1.5 inch allowance. I'm adding 1.5 because, oh, you know what, actually I'm going to add just 1 inch allowance, so 6 inch, because we're going to fold it down here. We're also going to fold it up here on the shoulder, so that's ½ inch for both sides. So now I'm going to just cut on that line I made. So now instead of cutting like the lining with that whole thing, now I'm just using this part. Now next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place my lining. Make sure it's flat, because this lining is a very, very light material, so it's going to move. So let's just make sure it's at least straight for a start, like this. What we're going to do next is we're going to just place this on top. Normally I'll fold it in two to make it easier, but I actually want you guys to see that all I'm doing is copying this thing. So place it like this. So with this way now, I'm able to copy the exact same thing onto this fabric. So now we're going to pin, because if we do not, then we're just looking for trouble. So we're going to pin in the vital places. That's going to be at the bust point, basically the area where we know that we're going to make curves, so that way it doesn't stand up or get or lift in that area. Then here we're going to do the same thing. Okay, so I just finished cutting this out. The next thing I'm going to do is take out my pins. So now, as you guys can see, I have the exact same thing on two sides. So now on this one, all I'm doing is sewing this like this. So I'm just going to sew this closed from top to bottom like this. Then I'm just going to stop like ½ inch below where this thing ends right here. Again, I'm sewing from here like this, stopping just right ½ inch above where this is going to end. And I'm doing the same thing on this side, on both sides of this, and I'm doing the same thing on the lining too. So just stay tuned. So this is what it looks like right now. Does it make sense? You guys can notice that this part is poking out. So I sewed the lining the exact same way. So right now I'm going to treat them as the same thing. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to trim this. So this is how I sewed it. I'm going to just trim here right now. Scissors, so okay. But I'm not going to trim it normal. I'm going to trim it like a V shape, so that this way it balances here when it comes upon each other, on top of each other. Okay, so now that this is done both sides, I'm going to iron it like so. When pressing it, I'm going to make sure this part is open like this. Actually, I can just finger press it. So finger pressing is just like ironing, but then you're doing it with your finger. It actually works. So when ironing this, use the edge of the ironing board like so, because the edge is curved. So you want to iron on that curved edge. Okay, so I noticed it was poking around the hip area, so I decided to sew it all the way down like I initially planned. So I didn't really like slit it, I just sewed it down like this on the inside. You don't have to, but I just did that. So these are the cups looking like. Not my best, but I mean, it will work. So right now I'm just going to fold this in two, fold that on top and make it look like one entity when working with it. I'm just going to treat them like they're one, because that way it's going to be easier to work with. I'm really only going to be working with the top part, like from here to here. So that's the only part I really need to align. I'm going to pin like this. Okay, let me pin like this so that way it's not influencing what I'm cutting. Then I'm going to pin one down too. Okay, let me bring it to the side a bit. So I'm trying to make sure it's aligning like exactly, because that's going to be very crucial to what I'm doing. I'm going to come back here, pin it right here. By pinning, make sure everything's still aligning, because this is where things like to go south. Make sure everything's still the same length. Here, just because we really want everything to be balanced when we're cutting. Okay, so we're placing it back on this line that we initially made. So this is when we're going to cut the depth of the neck. So the width of the neck is going to be about 3.5 right here. So from the top we're going to do 8 right here. Now we're just going to draw. You can draw it like freehand, but that depends on you too. So I don't want to make it too like open right there. I'm just going to go up a bit like this and then come like this. So we're cutting like this. So now we need to cut off the armhole. So the armhole, typically I usually cut it at 8, but I measured hers and it's 11.5. I'm definitely adding to that because I don't want it to be too tight on her. So 11.5 is the armhole. That's 6. So we're going to cut, because the shoulder is going to be slanted. Let's have that in mind. Slanted shoulder, put all the way to 7, 8, and then let's cut at 7.5, because again we still have this to fold over. So now, if this was our shoulder, we're going to divide it by 2. Shoulder usually is 14, so 7 divided by 2. So this right here is going to connect to this like this, and that's how we have our shoulder to draw. So we're just going to do like a little arc right here. So like this. And this is what it's going to look like right here. So now we need to come back here and clean this up so that it looks like this. I think that's going to be a cool shape that we're drawing right there. So now the next thing we need to worry about is the remaining measurements for the dress. So now let's measure out our bust. To measure out our bust, we need to make sure this part's actually like staying real well. So our bust is going to be 37. So we're going to divide that 37 by 4. So we're not going to make it flat. We're just going to follow exactly how it's on top like this. So 37 divided by 4, it's around 9.5. So I'm just going to add 2 inches to that. Actually 9, add 2 inches, that's 11 right here. So just leave it like so, right where it is. It's going to end up being very big. That's fine. I rather my clients have enough, too much allowance inside than too little. So now the next thing we're going to measure is the waist. The waist is 31. 31 divided by 4, same thing. That's going to be 7 3/4. So place it around where the waist is supposed to go. So 7 3/4, 1 2 3. You can add 2 inches to that as well. So 7 3/4, 8 3/4, 9 3/4. So it's going to be just like this. So now you can start making the curve right here from the top here till 23. That's where usually the hip starts from. So top to 23 right here. So on the 23 mark, we're going to measure out our hip. So our hip is 42. We're going to divide 42 by 4 again. Again, we're dividing this by 4 because it's going round the body, and this is like 1/2 of the 4 parts. That's why we divide by 4. So it gave us 10.5. So 10.5 is going to be all the way to the end right here. So next thing we're going to measure is the steps. So the steps is like usually the hip -2, but sometimes I like to have my client like take the measurement. The steps is going to be 30. What are I? 38. I don't know. I'll just go with 38 because 38 is just like 42 divided by -4. So that's what I was going to do either way. So 38, 19. So 9.5. So we're going to have it at 10.5. So now I'm just going to cut on what I've drawn like this. I just realized you guys did not see what I was doing, so that's what it looks like. The hip and then the slight slope right there. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this right now. That's how the armhole. Hopefully we cut this right, because if we did not, then we are in trouble. Okay. Woo, this looks nice. Kinda. So now is it making more sense? Do you guys see what it looks like right now? So this top right here is going to be this part. Like this. It's going to start from here like this. Next part we need to cut out is going to be this part from here to here, and that we're going to cut out on the lace. But so far I'm actually loving how this is turning out to be. Okay, so now for the next part, I want it to be doubled because the client doesn't really want her skin to show. So I'm gonna have it doubled like so. So that way you know it's a net, but it's kind of like hard to see through. So that means we're going to be folding this into 4. So first fold like this, and by the way, check for the most stretchy side. That's the part I want to be this way. Okay, so fold this like this, and then again. Okay, so I'm aligning it right here so I don't lose sight of this measurement I made initially. So we're going to come take this one, put it on top like this. Okay, so it started somewhere here. Where is it? Let me move this to this side so I can see my marking. Oof, you have to be very careful because any little thing you do now, this one, it moves, which is annoying. You can measure again, but I just like to just use the placing to see. What we're going to do now is cut out the top part from here. So our neck, I want the neck to be 4.5 inch wide, so like so. 4.5. That's actually really wide. You don't have to do it that wide. First of all, let's get our slant. So let's get our slant like so for the shoulder. So that's our slant. So actually let's make it 4. Where we eventually sew, it's going to go back to 4.5. So 4. And then we're going to make the depth 3. So 4 inches and then 3 for the depth. We're just going to do like a U shape like this. So simple U shape like this. So now for our shoulder, her shoulder was, oh, what's the shoulder? 16. So that's going to be 8 right here. So right where this thing is, like this. So it's going to be right like this. So this is what we end up with. So something I actually forgot to do was to measure this part. So this part doesn't have to be this wide, because from, okay, so that part can be 5.5. Let me see what I have here. So this part is really wide. So I'm going to come in a little bit more like this on the armhole. Just cause a little bit more like that on the armhole. I have to remember I did the same thing on that side. Okay. Okay, so this is what I have. At this point, I'm going to cut like this. Let me see how many inches that is so that I don't forget where I'm sewing it. So I'm going to cut 1 inch down straight. So 1 inch like that straight. Okay, so here. Perfect. It's going to come like this. Okay. So now what I'm going to go do is I'm going to sew this round. So I'm going to go sew this round so that the neck can have, like, you know, look neat. Okay, so I sewed it like this. Now I'm just going to turn it like this. And when turning, I'm going to use the side of the table to press it. Okay. Okay. So now that that's done, that's 6 inches, right? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just mark some points right here. Let me see if you guys can see. Nope, you guys cannot see what I'm pointing at. Oh, there's let me actually move this way and bring this down. I don't want to move this. I'm sure I'm going to come around. Okay, so I just marked this point right here, basically where it meets. I'm going to mark this one right here too, just so I don't lose it, because if I use a chalk I know it is going to go away. So mark this right here too, so that I know where everything meets. Okay, aha, got it. So now I'm going to flip it like this and then put it on those points. It's going to look very tricky, but when I sew it, hopefully it actually does what it's supposed to do. So now I'm going to take this like this one, place it like this. So let's start from the middle part. So for the middle part, I know it's supposed to go here like this. It's going to look very weird like before I sew it, but trust the process. So I know this one was like right here. Okay, so I'm going to place this like this. Make sure it's meeting at that point too, like that. Then I'm going to pin right there. So pin right there, like that, right where it meets. Perfect. So now I'm going to bring this part up to where it's supposed to meet right here. So like this, and then I'm going to pin right there. Same thing for this side. Bring this part to where it's supposed to meet. It's going to look so weird. And then same thing, I'm just going to pin it. Like so. Okay, so this is what it looks like. On this side, it looks totally out of it. So I'm going to start from the middle right here. Then as I go, I'm going to fix it till I get to this part right here. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll show you guys when I've sewn it. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Kind of looks halfway decent, except I understand some things that's going on here. I feel like I should take this inside a little bit more, like this side. I don't know. Okay, so next I'm going to do a top stitch here. So basically it's going to be stitching this part to here, so just top stitch right here. Okay, so this is what it's looking like right now. This is what the front's looking like. So at this point we're just going to fix it up, and by fix it up, I mean just fold it, make sure everything's looking good, and then we're going to cut the back. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this upside down like this, a bit inside out, like so. Then I'm going to sew this side so that we can have a neat edge. So sew this side down like this, sew the other side down like this, so that when I turn it, it has neat edges on the inside. Okay, just what I was saying. Sew the edges like so, like this. So now we turn it in. This way, if it doesn't fit the client, it's easier to fix it. So see how it looks on this side now. Nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press it. I can either use my finger to press it, or I can use the edge of my table to press it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go in and measure all this again to make sure it actually, you know, is not too small. So the bust was 37 divided by 2. You just have to keep measuring, just so at the end of the day, if there's any mistakes, you catch it on early. So now let's see this, 18.5. Yep, perfect. I have more than enough allowance. Let's see, the waist is going to be 15.5. Yep, I still have enough allowance. So this way, even if I mess up on the back, like I have enough allowance in front to cover it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this as a pattern to cut out the back. Okay, so now remember this other piece of fabric that I had cut out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it like this. I already ironed this, but it's just been manhandled, and that's why it's like, you know, looking like this. Just make sure it looks like this, and then now I'm going to cut out the back. Okay, so just like we did with the other one, first thing we're going to do is cut off this place so that it doesn't show up on our design. So next we have to remember that we're going to put a zipper at the back, so leave space, enough space for zip allowance. Let's make sure this is aligned properly. So now leave enough space for zip allowance. To me, zip allowance should be like about 1.5 inches. So 1.5 inches, then you mark. So I'm going to come in with my ruler and draw that all the way down. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my front piece. I really don't need the front piece at this point, but if you want, you can use the front piece as like a pattern to cut out the back. But again, this is not compulsory. I really don't know what I want to do just yet. But then I just want to place the front piece to make sure that even after taking out my zip allowance, I have enough space. See, this is exactly where I need it to be. So now at this point, I can just come here and mark on my front piece. Good. So like this, I know everything is where it needs to be. So now I can just go ahead and mark where my thing is supposed to go. But again, I have the measurement right here, so either one you want to use works perfectly. So I'm going to kind of use both, so that way I'm kind of fixing the front as I'm doing the back also. So first thing I'm going to take is my shoulder, which is 16. 16 divided by 2 is going to be 8. So start from this point, because again, this is the zipper point, which is non-existent right now. So 8 inches. Oh, I can see that. Okay, at this point my shoulder is kind of small, so yeah, we're going to have to work with that. Okay, so 8 inches here. Just have to like stretch it out a bit, since this is like not actually straight. So straighten it out, and it's right at that 8 inches mark. So 8 inches. So the depth of my armhole now, how much do I want it to be? Let me see. I'll tell my armhole to end around like a 7.5 inch mark. So like right here. So this one is definitely going to go up a little bit more. So it's going to come like this. So as you can see, I'm making the adjustment to the front and the back at the same time. So now my bust is 37 divided by 4. And my bust is going to be 9.5. I still have 2 inch allowance right here. So right now I'm going to mark this exactly like at where this one is. I know I'm still going to take it like a 1/4 inch, but that's just because I want my back to fit smaller. So here. So my waist is going to be waist 31. Remember that we have a dart on the waist. It doesn't really get to the bust, but it gets to the waist. So 31. Waist right here is going to be 8 inches plus 2. 1, 2 right here. I'll just give like 1/2 inch, for the waist and for the dart that we're going to have. So this is going to come a little bit like this. So now for the hip, I know the hip's going to end like really where this one's ending. So for everything else, I'll just copy it. Okay, so this is going to go somewhat like this, so that we can know what we're getting. Cool. So we're making like this shape right here. So now on the client, I measured like from her back to back. That's just the best I can describe it. But basically, it's from the arm, from one armhole to the other armhole. And when I measured it, I got 14.5. So that's going to be 7.5. Yep, it's perfect, right where it should be. So right now, I'm just going to go in like this with this and just make a slight curve right here for the armhole. So just like this, because everything is right on point where I need it to be. So now next thing we need to know is the neckline. So place this back here so I can see how many inches are left for the neckline. So what if I do it at 5 and then bring it like up like this? Because I know the client doesn't really want the neck to be low, so I'm just going to make it like this. So next thing we're going to do right here is the slant for the armhole, for the shoulder, rather, shoulder slant. This is just probably like 1/2 inch or more than half. Doesn't really matter. So come back here and don't forget to put the slant here too. Yep, so right like this. So now we're going to cut out the back and also cut out the front. I want to refer back to my sketch because at this point I always forget I sketched something. Then I end up not following what I sketched. See? Forgot I was going to make this place like this, which actually makes sense because now I did it like this. Okay, so now cut this middle part open for the zipper. Right here, what I'm doing is I'm just marking for the dart. So first of all, I'm going to mark to the waist, which was 17 inches, then 4 inches from after the zipper allowance. Then I make a notch so that way I know where it is on all 4. So the length of the dart is going to be from where the armhole starts all the way to where the hip stops, which is around 23 inches. So I used pins to know exactly where the dart is supposed to start and end and the point in which it's supposed to curve. So I'm just going to take this to my sewing machine. So take out the pins while I sew the line to replace the pins. Okay, so this is what it's looking like right now. This is the front. Of course, I sewed the dart and I kind of finger pressed it. So this is what it looks like from the front. So I also sewed the dart on the lining. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put this like so. So put this like this. Then I'm going to stitch it right here on the neck. Okay, so I pressed it and everything is looking nice. So next thing I'm going to do right now is, this is the back, right? This is one side of the back. I'm going to place this part of the back like so, and then I'm going to sew. See, everything's aligning. So now I'm going to leave about a few inches. Actually, this depends on the length of the zip, but we want to aim anywhere below the hip area, because since the hip is the largest area, I want it to be free. So my zipper is going to definitely start from somewhere around the 17-inch mark, but then again, I'm not sure. This is going to depend on the length of my zipper, so I'll go look for my zipper and then determine the length. But what I'm going to just sew in a straight inch at about 1¼ right here. Okay, so this is the length of the zipper. I'm going to start sewing it at around this area right here, so that way I have enough allowance on this side, you know, to accommodate the thing. But this zipper I'll be using really long zipper, so better longer than short. Okay, so I sewed that together, and then I have the zipper right here. So this is the back. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take this front piece and place it like so. So like this, then I'm going to join the shoulders right up there. So how I'm going to sew the shoulders is going to be like this, right? So now I'm going to turn this in like so, so that way it's invisible, like the joining is going to be inside and it looks really neat. So I'm going to do, and then sew it straight like this, so on both sides. Then next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out this to make sure all the measurements are aligned. I'm going to measure out the bust measurement here, mark, waist mark, hip mark, and then sew down. Okay, so this is what I was saying. Now it looks like this on this side, and on this side it looks like this too. So if you guys want a more detailed video on how this is done, I mean, I'll do that. So as you guys can see, the front is slightly bigger than the back, and that's exactly how I want it to be, so it's going to fit a little bit more perfectly. As you're sewing, don't forget to cut off all these straight threads so your work looks neat. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer the measurements now. So the bust measurement was 37, right? I'm going to divide 37 by 4, no, by 2 actually, since it's folded into 2. I'm going to divide 37 by 2 and then put it across like so. Okay, so given from this, I know that I'm going to have like about 1½ inch or to 1¼ inch allowance on both sides. Mind you, this is not like final. After this, you can always go back and adjust to the right measurement. So next, we're going to come down to the waist. The waist is 31½. I know that that's 15½. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this inside out and then remeasure, just to make sure all my measurements are making sense. So turn this inside out. Actually, it's supposed to iron this first, but I prefer not to. Just, you know, till I've made sure that my measurements are actually right. So now you see it's looking like a dress. So this is what the thing looks like right now. Okay, so I folded this into 2. Next thing I'm going to do is have to fold it into 2 again. Now with cutting sleeve, I have my own method which I invented and it works for me. But then if you want the whole pattern method of how to cut sleeve, that's a whole different thing now. That wastes time, and plus you guys know I don't like patterns. So okay, I haven't sewn in a while, so I'm really rusty. What I'm trying to do is make sure that this is balanced right here. And since it's network, you know that we're expecting it to move a lot. Okay, so this right here. So now the sleeve, so let's do it at 15. So this is our 15 mark here, right here. We're just going to measure about 5 inch downwards. 5 inch, between 3 to 5 inch. 5 inch may or may not be too much. Let me just go ahead and measure 4. I'm just guessing right here. So now, next I'm going to measure is the round arm on that 4 inch mark. So the round arm is supposed to be 12. So that's going to be 6. Then I'm going to add about 1 inch allowance, just because I don't know, something with sleeves always annoy me, so I just have to always add extra 6 allowance, so that in case it's too small. So now from here, I'm just going to draw like a curve like this. You can use your, what's it called, French curves to make this curve, but then, so you guys have probably observed, I prefer doing my things freehand. So make a curve that looks just like this. There's particular measurements to get these curves, but again, I don't like to work with patterns. Now we're going to measure like this part of the arm, and so that part of the arm was let me see, 10 inches. So we're going to measure our 10 inches here, but again, remember we're leaving 1 inch allowance, so that's going to be 6 right here. So then we're going to connect this to this. So the next thing we're going to do is to make sure that this is actually that 8-inch mark, or whatever that measurement was when it gets to 1. Perfect. It just seems to be perfectly on that 8-inch mark. Okay, so now with this, we're already that our measurements are actually aligning perfectly. But I just want to go back to my clothes and actually measure that 8-inch mark, because I do not recall if it's actually 8 inches or something else. But I believe it was 8 inches. So go back here and measure here. Yep, it was indeed 8 inches. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this like this. I'll cut your whiskers. Next thing to do is to open this, and okay, so first of all, mark your middle notch. So this right here already know, okay, it's going to be our middle. So the next thing you're going to do now is to choose the part that's going to act as your front. That part that acts as your front, you're just going to do this. Just remember how we made a little thing when we were cutting the sleeve. So we're going to replicate that little thing we took in from that front part of the sleeve. I just took about like 1/2 inch right there. Perfect. So now we're going to stitch it on to this part here to join it to the sleeve. Okay, so this is just me trying to cut out the flare. I had to manipulate the fabric like a lot of times because I wanted to cut it out and like just cut one round thing, not having to cut it in pieces. So I ended up cutting a 1/2 flare. If you want to know how to cut flares, I have a video talking about how to cut the different types of flare. After cutting the flare, the next thing I did was to attach the top part of the flare to the bottom part of the dress. I did that off camera, but these are the results. Okay, so I didn't focus much on the sleeve because all I did was just to attach a flare to it, which I showed you guys how to cut in a different video. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you in my next video.